All right, and welcome back to another episode of Southern Outdoor Media. I'm your host, Brady Duncan. We've been gone for a couple months, 2 months. I don't know. Last time you saw, we were in the apartment up in Jefferson City. School was still in. We were still fishing. It's kind of slowed down. We're midsummer. I finally got everything back together here at the house because, as most of y'all know or seen my Instagram or Facebook, I'm not going back to Carson Newman. I'm going to start pursuing the dreams of Toyota Series. To talk for a totally different time. Glad to be back, glad to be doing this. And tonight we have a very special guest. But before we get into that, upcoming over the next few weeks, we have the Bassmaster National Championship. We're leaving for that Sunday, the college. We have the Last Music City BFL coming up. Looking forward to that one. 12th in the points. Looking to make a run. We're probably going to make the regional. That being said, regionals down on Eufaula. Over in October, November, something of that sort. So looking forward to that one. And we're right in the middle of Saginaw Bay right now, so we're going to talk about that. But again, I would like to introduce our very special guest, hot off the MLF Invitationals with 5 top 10s in 2023, 3 being Invitationals, 1 being MLF, 1 being the MLF College National Championships, and 1 being the Toyota Plains Division. Drew Gill, buddy, what is up?
What's up, dude? How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm glad to be back, glad to be talking, and I have a lot to ask you tonight.
That is awesome. I got a lot to talk about. I love talking fishing, man. I'm out here prepping rods, getting ready for St. Lawrence River, and there's nothing better when you're doing tackle than getting to talk fishing while you're doing it. So.
That's right. I know, God, we've known each other for what, 2 years now?
Mm-hmm.
Going on 3 years.
Yep.
So, been pretty cool.
Yep, since my sophomore year.
Yeah. So let's jump into it. You're getting ready for the St. Lawrence. So obviously your season's not over yet, but you're getting close. How many tournaments you got left?
So I got 4 events left, 3 maybe 4. Just depends on how this one goes. Whether I'm gonna subject myself to the Potomac River in September. So we've got 3 or 4 left. So we got this one, which is a Northern Division event, and then I've got the Plains finale at Lake of the Ozarks in September, where I'm going to be fishing, try and win Plains AOI, and then I will have Table Rock for sure in November for the Toyota Championship. Which that one's the big one that's left. St. Lawrence is one I'm really looking forward to because I enjoy fishing there, and I like the way that it fishes for the way that my style works. But ultimately, the big one left this year's Table Rock. So most of the big stuff's over for the year, and the invitationals have concluded. I really enjoy fishing Toyotas because you get enough dose of skill in there that it feels you got the big tournament feel. You got all of the aspects that come into proper decision making for a big tournament because you got enough anglers that know what they're doing that you can't really slack off or say that you're trying to catch just enough to have a good event. The goal with those for this year has been, obviously the biggest goal this year was to qualify for the Toyota Championship through the Toyotas, but really the big goal of Toyota Series events is to go out, figure out the place for the week, make a check, and essentially get to fish that week wherever I'm at for free. So that was why I jumped in the Northerns this year, because I wanted the chance to go to Champlain, St. Lawrence, which were 2 that I felt like I had good odds of making a check at, to go learn a little bit more about those fisheries and ideally make a good check while doing it so that I could fish that week on whatever fishery it is, even though it's 14 hours from the house for free. Because, man, the way they got those payouts structured, it's a fantastic way to get a lot of experience really quick. And, the Toyota Championship is the 3rd biggest payout event in the sport. And the other 2, you got to get there by being at the apex level of whatever series you're fishing and fish all year and compete and finish high in the points to be there and spend $5,000 an event or $10,000 membership fee to fish those events versus the Toyota Championship. Dude, you got to fish 3 events at $1,700 a pop and do well in those 3 and you'll make it.
100%. Before I tapped you in here, I was talking about your year so far. You 5 top 10s just this year alone. And of course, 4 more tournaments coming up, kind of getting back into the season that you like to be. We'll get on to that here in a little bit, though. But really, I mean, talk about your success and what's been your entire season as a whole. How have you been successful? Like, what's your mindset been like, and like, what is the key factors you believe has played into your success as a 20-year-old kid?
Yeah, so in my opinion, with the way that I've chosen to mold my career, essentially what I'm trying to do is take the technology that we have in forward-facing sonar and apply it everywhere we go, because it is a shortcut every single fishery we go to. Now, some fisheries it's more of an ample shortcut than others. We go to the herring lakes, the Ozark lakes. We go up north, like those are the obvious scoperies. But then we'll go places like the Mississippi River. We'll go to spawn tournaments. We'll go to places with really dirty water in places like Oklahoma or Arkansas where you don't think it would play, but it does. And I'm trying to apply that technology to everywhere I go, because ultimately there is something to learn from it in every single fishery. I have caught almost every fish I've weighed all year on the invitationals on the screen, from Okeechobee, Fallout, Oklahoma, Clarks Hill, Lake of the Ozarks, Mississippi River, Potomac River, even. Like, all of those places, I have caught them on scope all year. And so, like, for me, the biggest factor has just been learning forward facing sonar as well as I can, and basically trying to apply a concept of fish migration to the knowledge that I have through using forward facing sonar. Because ultimately, where those two collide, if you can stay on the concept that fish are fluid and they move constantly, and combine the ability to use forward facing sonar extremely well, you're going to be very well off on those fisheries across your country.
100%. And I agree. Like, our next two, I had written down. I had technique, like what you do differently as a fisherman to set yourself apart, and then I had live scope down written below that, because I know that's what you do. And looking at that and kind of looking, I just kind of stopped fishing college. I fished college for 2 years. You were around the same time I was there, and you saw those college kids, and then you jump into the invitationals. Do you think, how does that play? Are college kids past the level of those invitational guys that aren't out there scoping? Is that why
So
is the college world harder than the Toyotas and the invitationals, so to say?
the college field, what I will say is the college field does not get enough credit for its skill level. The college field has more guys that commit to their forward facing sonar as a percentage of the field than I think any other field in the country. There's more guys that feel like they're comfortable with it in college fishing than any other tour. And so many guys commit to it. And it's why we see some crazy stuff happen at times with the college tour, like what we saw at the Harris chain last year
Uh-huh.
when the Messers caught 36 pounds or whatever. The college guys are way more likely, one, to take risks, because most of our seasons, that yes, there's Bass Master Team of the Year, but most of our seasons are not based around a points concept.
Yeah, like
And
nothing to
so it's
lose.
there's nothing to lose. And on top of that, it's a whole lot of guys that have a whole lot of pride on the line, because we don't have big payouts. So the college tour, everybody is fishing for pride and pride alone, which
Of
allows
course.
guys to take severe risks. And a lot of times it works out. And of course, when you combine a lot of anglers taking big risks as a percentage of the field with a very large field, you're naturally going to get some crazy stuff happening. So I think the college field deserves a lot more credit than it gets most of the time, um, because the college field ultimately is a lot of anglers now that have already been fishing for a long time, and it's the turnover rate. It's event by event. We are, through the spring this past year, which I didn't get to fish as much as I'd like to, but it was the Harris chain, and then it was the Kissimmee chain, and then it was the James River
Hmm.
and the Red River, and there was Gunnersville on that schedule. There were a lot of, like, the Ozarks. I mean, the turnaround rate of going to all these extremely different fisheries is really quick, and so people can't ever get in the rhythm of fishing a certain fishery for a certain time, because ultimately they're going to be there for 5 days. They're going to turn around. They're going to go to the next
Of course. So that being said, and you say this about, which I totally agree, by the way, because as you said in the beginning, or we were talking earlier, Marshall Robinson just won Rookie of the Year. You just finished
one.
second. He just made BBT, correct?
Yep,
In
he did.
eighth, and you finished one below him in ninth. And
Yep.
so, one heck of a season, by the way. I think that deserves a whole line of credit. But that being said, that's two of the youngest or younger kids on the entire invitational field. I mean, do these kids need college fishing?
Whew, that there is an extremely loaded question, but it's one I will attempt to give a straightaway answer to. So, to wrap up the last thing, I guess I didn't really quantify it. You're asking how it compares to Toyota Field or the Invitational Field.
Yeah, of
I
course.
would say college fishing on the whole, as far as regular season events goes, it compares to the Toyota Field. Toyota Field and level was 17th percentile.
Mm-hmm.
So, averaging beating 83% of the field every event. My average finish in Toyotas is 11th percentile. So it's a little bit better. And I'll keep in mind, a lot of these, it's not like I went from college to Toyotas. A lot of this was overlap. It was me fishing these events at the same time.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
same skill level, mentally, all these factors, all these controllable variables were, controlled. And I had very similar, even slightly improved records on the Toyotas. Now, the one thing I will say about the Toyota series is that it is a offshore centric schedule and it is not a pre-spawn centric schedule like college fishing is. So that is the caveat I'll put in there because I'm not a pre-spawn guy. My results suffer
Oh
the
yeah,
most
yeah.
in
I 100% agree with you there.
in March and April because it's when most of the fish are on the bank. It's when they're most accessible to everybody, and it's when they are the most random.
The only
100%.
time I can't catch them.
But in the invitationals field, that's the thing that struck me the most this year was I expected to take the step up to the invitationals and it feel like slightly harder Toyotas for it to feel, a little bit higher difficulty.
Uh-huh.
And dude, they are the real deal. That's the thing, man, is that you look at that field and a lot changed over the last year. A lot of people weren't real sure what was going to happen with the field quality. I top 10 half the season. I had another check and another barely missed check in 110th, and I didn't make the cut. I didn't even finish in the top 8, and I had 3 of the 6 events were top 10s. That field is the real deal. They are, I severely underestimated them coming into it. I thought it was going to be slightly harder than the Toyotas, and I was dead wrong. It is a very difficult field to fish against, and I think the big thing is that the scopers in that field, you look at the Hatfields and the Tristan McCormicks, and I'll throw me in there, and then Kyle Hall and Dakota Ebear, and a lot of guys that are really, really proficient at that. Man, they are top level. But you look at the shallow fishermen, guys like Martin Villa and Ron Nelson, and a lot of the guys that were on that tour that are, historically shallow fishermen. I'll throw a couple others in there. Flint Davis, Cal Lane, guys that are historically shallow fishermen, Greco. They are really, really good at what they do. They are on another level of beating the bank. And that's something that I don't think I really anticipated because normally tournaments have a lot of separation between the top and the midpoint of the field. Those events really haven't had that. You look at our cut weights all year, we're 15 and a half a day to make the top 50 at Okeechobee. Clarks Hill, it took 13 and a half a day to make the top 50. Lake Eufaula, it took 14 and change. Lake the Ozarks, almost 13 a day. The Potomac River, it took 13 and change. Mississippi River, it took almost 13 pounds a day. Like, those are weights just to make the top 50. Those are things that I did not anticipate coming from college fishing. Because in college fishing, there is not a tournament you can't survive catching 12 pounds a day.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I found it out the hard way this year that those tournaments you cannot survive catching 12 pounds a day.
Oh, of course, and even rolling into Toyotas, like as you say, Toyotas in college kind of compare about the same.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what I took away from that. And yeah, so even rolling into Toyotas, you look at most Toyotas, you catch 12, 13 pounds a day, you're cashing a check.
Yeah,
more than
just
likely.
about every time.
Just every
now,
time, not about pretty much wherever you go.
Yeah, and obviously excluding the realistic exclusions, which is the Harris chain and Gunnersville, and you talk about up north. Like, obviously, you're not going to make a check. It's Lake Champlain where it's literally raining 3-pound smallmouth
Yeah.
to 12 pounds a day. But like, it's not because it's hard to catch 17, 18 pounds at Champlain. It's not hard.
No.
It's the same difficulty level as trying to scrape up 13 pounds at Chickamauga after the place had a tournament every single day of the week for 3 months.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. So I mean, I guess that kind of covered what I was looking there, and it's kind of had my mind turning, looking back, and deciding that I was gonna leave Carson Newman, which no shame on them. They run a great program over there. I know you fish for Campbellsville. I know they treat you really well, and all sorts of that. And kind of looking from my personal, as a person who had traveled way before even high school fishing began, and kind of, that's what sets people apart, in my opinion, between high school and that Toyota Invitationals. Those guys, it's not that they're any better at fishing, they're just more comfortable with how to do it.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely comfort level, and honestly, sometimes it's an unwarranted comfort level.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of guys that think they know a place because they've been there 3 or 4 times.
Of course.
And the thing is now, dude, fishing, as well as I do, bass fishing is an extremely dynamic place, both in the industry and on the fishing side right now. And it is becoming...
Don't get me started on the industry.
It's becoming even more dynamic every day.
Of course.
And the thing is bass fishing in the last 5 years has transitioned from who is the best at finding the bass to now 90% of the time it's who is the best at catching the bass.
Yeah,
it is a lot more about skill and tweaks and hacks now than it used to be. It used to be about, I found this little sneaky place that nobody else has found. And it's not always talking about the anglers in your tournament. That's a lot of times talking about the locals too.
Of course.
Like, there is nothing these dang locals aren't finding anymore.
Oh,
and the thing is like, back in the day, we used to talk about, you look at the OG shallow fishermen, Denny Brower and Hank Parker and stuff. They were doing it back when nobody was doing it, and the skill level was extremely different from Denny Brower to your local angler. Mm-hmm. The distance between your pro to your local anymore is not that far. The equipment's the same. The knowledge on that fishery is the same. It's all about decision making. And
those guys can jump in their truck and drive 9 hours, hop out of their truck, jump in their boat, and go fish and still have a clear mind.
100%.
And be able to catch bass. Versus
100%.
Joe Blow over in high school can't drive 9 hours, hop out of his boat and go fish and keep his mind together all week. And that's, in my opinion, that's kind of why, okay, I have the opportunity to move forward and chase this. And I said, sure.
Mm-hmm.
Why not? So that's what we're looking forward to in the spring. Again, that's a different topic for a different time. But, I was going to ask you about your technique, like what you do differently. You hit on that pretty well, and that brought into live scope. And I've talked about live scope with you quite a bit. I wrote a paper over it back in class last semester. And I interviewed a bunch of other guys as well. And I didn't find those notes, but I think you talked about how live scope, and you as well as a bunch of other young guys, not some older guys, but live scope was kind of taking over everything, and how you pretty much had to know how to do it in order to be successful in your career. And you've made that You've proven that throughout the year, of course. if anyone watches,
it's my lifeblood, dude.
You're gonna have back problems in 5 years.
Yeah, that's my stance is that about the only thing I'm known for, even more than trying to catch a bass, is you're the guy that I only ever see your legs until you set the hook.
Yeah,
because I'm kneeled over the screen the whole day.
We need to find someone that'll make you a pair of goggles that you can just stand up and look around.
See, here's my idea. I'm pitching it to Precision Sonar. I'm gonna see if they're gonna make it a thing. It's a post that goes out of your seat hole up on the front deck, right? Mm-hmm. And it's got a back brace. And in this back brace, your live scope screen's attached. It swivels You just strap yourself in, and everywhere you turn, the screen follows, right? And so it's gyroscopic. It follows your face movements. It keeps the glare away. Dude, it's going to be revolutionary. Eventually, it'll lead into we'll have VR goggles that'll
VR
go on it,
goggles.
so we won't even have to have this. The screen will stay. Eventually, we'll move the screen back down to the deck, but we'll have VR goggles, so it'll be right in our face the whole
Yeah,
time.
and then like
Um,
wherever you look, like let's say you look straight down under the boat, you're looking your sonar. That's where it faces.
100%. Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
wherever you're looking, and that's something that we're gonna have to keep away from DNR because it's gonna be a potential safety hazard. But it's just a bump, a bump in the road.
Yeah, it's
Bump in the road's also what the party boaters are gonna call us whenever we stare at VR goggles the whole day and they run us over.
that's too funny. But yeah, man, God, I don't know, you talk so much. I love it. You cover everything at all times. I never leave any of our conversations with any questions.
Yeah, man, I'm trying to hit it from all angles. You know what I'm saying? Like if you can ask yourself a question about a topic, and you can answer that question in addition to whatever you're asked, then more than likely you're going to compile enough information to answer the question. And because I forgot to answer a question that you previously asked, I'm going to circle back around to it. So you asked if college fishing was truly necessary for a lot of young anglers.
Okay.
And in my opinion, it's going to totally depend on what your school goals are. And I know high school anglers don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear, oh man, you got to make sure you go to a school that matches up with what you're trying to do for your education. You got to focus on your education. Really, the focus on education is not them. I don't think it's most organizations telling you, hey, focus on your grades. Yes, they want you to focus on your grades. They're wanting you to focus on, hey, are you here for the right reason? Because a lot of guys go into college fishing because they like fishing. If you aren't there to get your education, don't go. I'm not going to bring down the entire education system right now because if I say what I want to say, it might, you know what I'm saying? But
the whole world's gonna hear this one.
100%. So like college, ultimately, it's on the shady level of whether it's a scheme or not to begin with.
Yeah,
and
of
if you're
course.
doing it just to go fishing, terrible idea.
I can
If you're
can vouch for that. I was in that position, been there, done that.
college is way too expensive to go unless you're already going to get your education. If you're already going to get your education, sure, go school shop and decide which one, which program you'd like to fish for as well as get your degree.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're just going to school because Carson Newman University or Campbellsville University or Wabash Valley College or Montevallo, Adrian McHenry, whatever, approached you to come go to school there and fish there, if you aren't already planning on getting your education, don't do it. The turnaround rate, what you don't see as a high school angler, is the turnaround rate in college anglers in their first semester or first year is unbelievable. Because guys love fishing and they get in too deep.
Mm-hmm.
And they realize that they would have rather done something else with their lives. And they just went and spent a whole bunch of money to do something they didn't enjoy for a year, but fish too. And the thing is, like, you could do so much with that money that you'd spend on college. College is so expensive nowadays. If you save that money and say you want to go into a trade, go into that trade. Do it. Save that money you would have spent on college. Go into a trade. Build up your bank account for a couple years, and then do the fishing gig straight up. Jump in the Toyotas, or if you want to go bassfishing, jump in the open. Like, which granted, it's a lot harder to say that now than it used to be. It used to be a little bit more straightforward over there, but that's a whole nother can of worms.
Well, yeah,
but,
of course. And
go
ahead.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not doing it to get your education, it's a poor decision.
Mm-hmm. I 100% agree there.
But if you are already dead set on, hey, I'm going to get my college education regardless of whether I go fishing or not, college fishing is a great option.
Yeah.
You get a lot of experience really fast, and you get to fail on someone else's dollar. And that is the pitch that I always give high school anglers. They come out of high school gung-ho, man. They were 4th in their state in Angler of the Year. That's awesome, man. I love that you love fishing.
Congrats, bro.
Congratulations. You have just booked your spot to somewhere between 100th and 250th place in these colleges. Because the biggest jump in fishing is from high school to college.
Yeah, 100%.
100%. You don't know what you're getting into until you get there. And so, like, you really got to assess what your goals are before you make that next jump. Because if you jump too fast, you're going to find yourself 6 hours away from home, somewhere you've never been before, doing something you really don't enjoy
Mm-hmm.
just so you can go fishing.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I'm sitting here and I'm looking at I got all my plaques from high school. And I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 11 plaques from high school in 4 years of high school fishing. And in 2 years of college fishing, I got one.
But here's the thing: in 2 years of college fishing, to have one plaque with how crappy they are about giving out hardware,
Of
like
course.
that's pretty
Something.
much a massive achievement. Because in high school, we get plaques for finishing fifth place in a field of 40 anglers, and in college, with two of the organizations, you can top 10 a 250 boat tournament and not get nothing
No,
other
I
than
get
a
a
high
single
five.
one.
Oh
Of
man.
course. Of course. And you know what? We'll wrap this up here pretty quickly. But yeah, I kind of wanted to bounce off that whole idea of not, if you're wanting a degree, go to college, get that experience, do it. If you're not there for a degree, you're there to fish. Do not do it. That's
Do not do that.
the
That's a terrible
only.
idea.
I never wanted to go to. I never wanted to go to school. Ever since I started high school, I said I'm not going to college. I learned to weld. I started welding, work on cars, anything. And then 3 years ago, I got a gig. I started doing dirt work and building houses, and I did that every summer for. I'm going on year number 4. Um, and I was like, you know what? It's kind of something.
Hmm.
Finally talked myself into. It was a bad idea if I didn't go to college, even though I was never going to use that degree. I was probably going to come home and I was going to keep building houses. Uh,
Yeah, and that's something a lot of people don't think about in advance, and a lot of people get FOMO, they get whatever else. They sit around, they're like, well, everybody I know is going to college, blah 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 blah. Well, everyone you know might not be going to college for the right reasons. They might be going for a degree that they don't have to go to school for in the first place. Cough cough. My stupid decision to not be more specific with my degree.
yeah,
Um, like, because that's another little tidbit. Business marketing, pick something more specific. If you're gonna
hundred
go for
percent.
business,
I went
pick
down.
something with numbers. Pick something with a tangible skill. Because all I have heard for the last 3 years is people skills and professionalism. And
Yeah,
ultimately, if you already
no.
have that, marketing classes don't do you a whole lot of good.
If anyone listens to this podcast and takes away one thing, you should go to school. If you go to school to fish, you go to school at all. If anyone that listens to this goes to school, you should take a communications course, major in whatever route you can go that has anything to do with social media and writing.
Dude, yes. Learn a tangible skill.
Learn how
If
to use a
you're looking,
camera, learn how to use a computer, learn how
yes.
to edit.
If you're going into business, don't do general marketing, do digital marketing.
Yes,
Like,
yes,
if you're going into that's something with business that's really important is like people need to pick something that has a skill. If you can't think of a tangible skill involved in the career path that you're picking, there probably isn't one. Go because the ultimate goal of education, what is it? It's to learn something.
mm-hmm.
And if you're going into an avenue where you can't perceive what you might be learning or gaining, you might be learning or gaining nothing.
Yeah,
And if you learn or
exactly.
gain nothing, you're just wasting everybody's time and your own money.
100%. And that's kind of the point I've come to. All that money I was spending on school, I'm now able to save that money, jump right in, pay for two Toyota divisions. I have a boss that is I'm very fortunate enough who's going to let me take off for those 6 weeks to go fish those 6 Toyotas and compete and be able to give me that chance and still keep my job, still work. And I'm actually not gonna lie, I'm finishing my degree online since I'm already 2 years in.
Mm-hmm.
But looking back, uh, I'm even though I'm 2 years in on school, I'm 2 years behind on Toyotas and Invitationals. That's the problem.
And unfortunately, thanks to people like Marshall and Trey, and I'll lump myself in that category, it's kind of pushing people's hands because they feel like every year that they're over the age of 18 and not fishing at a high level, they feel like they're losing years out on their career.
and
And
and you are.
and it's starting to look that way
Yeah.
because guys like Trey and Marshall, who, I mean, come out of the womb just catching bass, have forced everybody's hand. You got to get it, and that's the way with anything, man. You got to get better, faster, constantly. It does not matter if it's fishing, if it's business, if it's any other sport. The faster you get good at it, the better off you're going to be because ultimately, every year, everybody gets faster at getting better.
100%. And I hate to say this, and this might be a terrible thing, but if you ain't got it by the time you were 18 to, I'll go as high as 24 right now, but here in a couple years that'll go down to 18 to like 21. If you ain't got it by that time frame, sorry about your luck for the most part. That's kind of.
It's so tough because
I
you'll
mean,
get behind the eight ball with
yeah. Then
work, with life, and ultimately it becomes really hard to learn new things fast because the other thing about college fishing that's so advantageous that are striving towards everybody's striving towards the same goal. And so ultimately it's a rat race for getting better quicker.
and it just makes
And
you fight.
and when you
Fight for it even more.
yeah, and when you disconnect from that kind of culture and you try and jump back in it, you find yourself leagues behind everyone else.
Yeah. Yep. It's kind of like your parents trying, or your grandparents using a smartphone, and you're
100%.
and you were born with one in your hand. I even feel that way now. Me with my iPhone, and like someone in like middle school,
Yeah,
they
100%.
already they already know more than me
They
about it.
dude, they know way more features about everything technological than I ever could.
Like I'm scared about one of whoever's gonna grow up in that generation and start
Dude,
fishing.
and I know and you look at the scariest thing I saw this week in terms of the fishing world is I watched some drone footage
Of
from the
bass.
Bassmaster High School National Championship
Yeah.
of Mitch Robinson
Oh
and his
yeah.
partner Cody Abbott, I think his name, fishing in the Bassmaster High School National Championship. That stuff was scary because I was similar to that at the age of 16 and 17.
Knowing they
And
can
I'm
probably compete just as well.
and knowing that they can hang with what I do
Mm-hmm.
at that age, like it's just gonna keep pushing the envelope. And you think that fishing's as good now as it's ever gonna be. It's not. It's gonna keep getting better. And that's that's a ultimately we have used up a lot of time and a lot of people probably don't want to hear us continue to rant, but here is one thing that I will say. With the Bass Pro Tour right now, we are seeing something that's never been done before.
Mm-hmm.
In every year, there's a new person or two added that does this. Here's my argument with field skill level and the differences in different major tours. On the Bass Pro Tour, we're seeing something that's never been done. You know what we're seeing? Guys that never bomb. That's never been done in the history of the sport.
Never skip a
Even in
beat.
Kevin's heyday, Kevin would have a few really high tournaments and then a bomb,
Mm-hmm.
and then a couple high tournaments and then a
The bomb.
bomb.
Yeah.
We've got Dakota Ebert, Alton Jones Jr., Ott Defoe, Jacob Wheeler, Connell, guys that aren't missing cuts.
Catch
Out
them
of those
every
names,
single time.
you throw in Michael Neal and Jordan Lee. In those names, there was a set number of names that I talked to Marty Stone about this a few weeks back about. There was like 5 names. I think it may have been Michael Neal, Jordan Lee, Wheeler, Alton Jones Jr., and Ott. And out of five of them for 5 years, there had only been like a total of 40 some cuts missed, which is absolutely unbelievable because you look at it 5 years of 9 events a year. So that's 45 events per guy times 5 guys. That's 225 events. And out of 5 guys, out of those 225 events, only one of the five on average missed the cut ever
Not like
all year.
99% of the time, every single one of them was
Dude,
fishing the cut day.
it's unbelievable. And like people are like, well, ultimately, you know what the common denominator is for almost every one of those names? Ott's a little bit of an outlier, but he's, that's a total different, look into the way that people fish.
Yeah,
You look at all
yeah.
those other names, forward facing sonar,
Forward, yep, 100%.
period.
That's all they do.
Matt Becker, Dakota Ebear, Nick LeBrun. You look at all these guys in the way that they fish, and the common denominator is forward facing sonar. That format, whenever it was every fish counts, created a monster. And it's a monster that's only going to continue because it forced guys to find the fastest way to catch a 3-pounder everywhere they went.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's allowed guys to hack these fisheries. I mean, go to a place like Saginaw Bay where they've never been. And in 2 days, one day was blowing 30 miles an hour. Brady, you've been to Sag Bay.
Oh,
How on earth is Dakota Ebear and Jacob Wheeler and Greg Vinson and all these guys finding smallmouth on Sag Bay when they can't go past the Charities in 2 days and really just won because they had 30-mile-an-hour winds the other day?
that's what I was. I was watching. I was watching this morning actually, and I was watching Kevin Van Dam and all of them sitting out there.
Yes.
And there was one spot that I was catching smallmouth that wasn't past Charity Islands, but it was one spot, and how those it was up there on the up there at the lighthouse. I don't know if you know where that's
Mm-hmm.
at, but it was pretty
You
easy to.
talking about it all gray?
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
it was pretty easy to find smallmouth out there on those little channels on those flats and stuff. That was probably the closest place we'd found the entire way. And the place ain't big enough for all those guys that are out there
Absolutely
winning
not.
off smallmouth. Like when we were there,
It's
every guy that
crazy.
did top 10 it were pretty much in the river,
It
except
was
for who won,
yeah, and
of
they
course.
they went out to the Charities and spent 5 days out there looking
Yeah,
to find just enough fish to last them 2 days.
yeah, yeah, of
And
course.
I'll be interested to see how much the smallmouth fizzle, but ultimately, knowing Dakota Ebear and Jacob Wheeler, those are the two guys that I would think are, in my mind, are scariest to win this event because they're both catching only smallmouth, and with both of their track records, I don't see it running out. I just don't.
Smallmouth dominate this tournament every year. It's the only way you can top 10 off largemouth pretty easily, but
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
always one off smallmouth.
you seen what Russ Lane and Britt Myers and a couple other guys have been doing. I mean, they're doing the swim jig thing. They're catching, like, if they have a good day, they're going to catch 15 or 16 pounds. But, like, dude, it's
Those
so hard to win that way there because you've got to connect on multiple 3+ pound bites every single day and hope that the smallmouth guys struggle. Because the thing is, if Jacob Wheeler, Dakota Ebear gets 5 bites 2 miles offshore up at the Charities, if they get 5 bites a day for 2 days in a row, one of them will win it.
100%, and those fish, those largemouth, if unless you're in the river, those largemouth dwindle off so fast
Yes.
because they every single one of them bites because no one has caught them. So every
And
single one bites. You catch so many a day, they literally just quit biting it, and it takes 2 3 days people
and with
catching them.
with the largemouth fish in there, like you see guys, I mean, guys consistently, catching that high 2 average, or some guys even breaking 15 pounds of largemouth.
Hmm.
But like today, Spencer Sheffield caught an almost 6-pounder at Saginaw Bay, which does not happen.
That doesn't
And he only had
exist.
16 pounds.
Yeah, yeah.
You can't win on you. I'm sorry. I know Britt had 18 yesterday on it. You can't win on largemouth. You can't.
No, no,
It's
no.
not going to happen.
I agree
Even
with
if
that.
it's only 4 or 5 guys smallmouth fishing, the only outlier is how windy it gets for both the knockout round and the championship round. Because if it gets hairy, then yeah, the largemouth guys will probably win. But it's not because largemouth are a better bet. It's because the smallmouth guys, Saginaw Bay is a totally different beast. A lot of people listening, I'm sure most of them have never been there and probably will never be there.
No,
It
no. It's not the. Yeah, I can agree to that. It's different.
it
It's because
that place gets ugly.
it blows straight in, every single time.
And it does not fail. It's crazy.
Or just a barely just a smidge of a crosswind.
Yeah, and it's going to be exciting to watch that event unfold. The
Yeah, of
outliers, I
course.
think the two biggest outliers in that event for winning it are Brian Thrift and Kevin Van Dam. And here's why: because Thrift and Kevin are fishing a totally different way. And Kevin, I don't know what he was doing, where he was today. I don't know that he was in the same area. Thrift and Kevin were both in wildfowl the first day
Mm-hmm.
and throwing chatterbait and offshore grass. And that's a bite that's one I know the college tournaments have not tapped into because that place
No.
is an endless wasteland of stargrass. It's really hard to dissect it because a lot of it's just endless perch and bowfin and drum. And both of those guys have gotten on that bite, and I think there's a potential that they either of them could compete for a win doing that deal. And I'm excited to watch that deal unfold. Plus, sentimental value wise, I wouldn't mind watching Kevin win this tournament.
Oh yeah, he's due one. It's his, it's gonna happen. He's gonna win one somehow.
So we'll see.
But
We'll
yeah,
see.
me too. A couple days left of that, but pretty much that covers everything I wanted to cover tonight, man. I greatly appreciate it. I brought in a lot of insight to whoever's listening. If anyone makes sense of it, we we talked about just about everything. Covered a bunch.
Yeah, it was it was a it was rapid fire. We'll say that.
Yeah,
The whole lot of information all across the college fishing, tournament fishing spectrum in a very short amount of time.
we talked about this right before we jumped into this, and we talked about how long we wanted this podcast to be. We said 15 minutes,
Yeah,
and we're
never
at
fails.
42 and a half.
Yep, never fails.
Never fails. But, we talked about a bunch of great stuff. We covered a bunch of topics. I greatly appreciate you coming on. Uh,
Absolutely, buddy. I really enjoyed it.
One heck of a season. Congratulations. Good luck finishing out your Toyotas. And you got your in, You figured it out. You know what you're looking for. You know what you need to do next year. Go out there, get it done. Hope to have you on again. And
Absolutely, buddy. Anytime.
we will catch you on the next week's episode, pretty much. We're going to try to get back into this weekly thing. Next week's episode of Southern Outdoor Media, where we're going to have another youngin coming on, talking about a few things. They just got done at the Hartwell National Championship, so we're kind of looking to that for high school. And we're going to kind of look in, now that we've talked to Drew Gill here about college fishing and Toyotas and Invitationals, we're going to talk to some high schoolers about what it looks like going up, moving into kind of your future stages, and how that success travels into, your season and all that. So, again, thanks for watching. Be sure to click subscribe, click like. Appreciate y'all for watching. Catch you next week.